It's been 3 games since Cade Cunningham played for the Detroit Pistons, so we have a 3-game sample size to see how have they done without Cade. We'll break down how this team has looked in today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I'm your host, Ku Khahil. You can find me over on Twitter at Ku Khahil. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. That's another great way to support the podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today. Also, make sure you guys head over to LockedOnDaily.com, type in your email, and you will get a Locked On Pistons daily newsletter with your daily Locked On Pistons podcast. Head over to do that. That's another great way to support the podcast. You guys will love the content. Later on, I want to discuss whether Detroit season has stalled a little bit. Is there reason to have concerns about how they're going to look moving forward? Are they in a bad spot right now? Are they in a rough spot? Is there reason to be concerned? We'll talk about that a little later. And also, I want to break down the in-season tourney, reaching towards the end of it, what the Pistons need to do to make it out of their group stage. We'll talk about that a little later as well. But I want to start with how the Pistons have looked without Cade Cunningham. So as I'm recording this, by the way, happy Thanksgiving to everybody. I am recording this on Thanksgiving. It's 7:30 right now. So I want to wish all of you guys a happy Thanksgiving. I hope you guys had a great one with family and friends. Hope you guys ate enough food. I know I did. My stomach's really hurting right now. I'm not going to lie to you guys. But hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving. But as I'm recording this, Cade Cunningham is currently listed as questionable for their game on Friday against, I believe, the Indiana Pacers, right? Yeah, the Indiana Pacers at Indiana at 8 p.m. Now, that obviously is an in-season tourney game. We'll talk about that, like I said, a little later, but it makes sense that, if Cade had been dealing with something, you want him ready for the in-season tourney games. So I won't be surprised if he does return for this game against Indiana. But I want to break down how the team has looked without him. There's a minor section of the fan base that kind of has pushed this whole, the team's better without Cade. Look at the win percentage without Cade in the 5 game, 6 game, or whatever games he didn't play last year in the middle of the season. Look what they did, blah, blah, blah. There's a minor part of the fan base that thinks that, and I don't think a lot of people do. I'm not really doing this to address them, because I think a lot of people understand that that's incredibly stupid. So I'm not really trying to address the minor part of the fan base that thinks that. I just want to break down how missing Cade has really put on display just what the Pistons' weaknesses are. They've really made it more glaring. So just break it down. The Pistons played 17 games with Cade. And in those 17 games, they had a 111.6, my goodness, 111.6 defensive rating. They had a 110.7 offensive rating. Their defensive rating was 12th in the NBA, and their offensive rating was 20th in the NBA. They had a net rating of minus 0.9. In the 3 games without Cade, their offense has struggled mightily without him. They're down full 3 points. They're at 107.8. They are getting their net rating right now over the last 3 games is minus 10. They have not been close in a lot of these games. In 2 of these games, they did win 1 on a Jaden Ivey buzzer beater, but in 2 of the games it was not very close. And they have a defensive rating of 117.9, which would be 24th in the entire NBA. Now, obviously, the Pistons are better with Cade Cunningham. That's not rocket science. You need your best player on the floor. Cade's their best player. You need him. Without him, obviously, you're not going to be as good. That's clear. The reason, like I said earlier, I want to discuss this, is that missing Cade has really made some of the weaknesses glaring. And I think the main weakness that it has really showcased for this team is the lack of ball handling. Now, you're hoping that the return of Ausar Thompson will bring that you started to see him in just the 2 games that he has played. You're seeing him start to handle the ball a little more, but without going full on into how Ausar has looked. His stamina is like a 50 overall right now. He gets gassed quickly, and he's playing short stints. It's not like they have him playing heavy minutes. He's playing short stints, but he's getting gassed very quickly. And obviously that makes sense for someone who hasn't played any 5-on-5 basketball since February, March. Like, we're not talking about pickup, no off-season, no training camp, no preseason. Like, has not been able to play any legit games of basketball since then. It's been 9 months nearly. So it's going to take some time for him to get back to full peak condition, for him to knock the rust off. Probably going to take 10-ish games. When you miss nearly a calendar year without being able to do any basketball action for real, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. So it's going to be a while before I feel like you really feel the impact of Ausar, but the hope is that eventually he helps solve some of that. But even with that, you're taking a risk with Ausar because we don't know yet whether he's able to accept that and thrive in that bigger role. I'm hoping, I believe he can, but that's a risk. If he's not able to do so, without Cade, they just don't have any ball handling on this team that creates for others. And even with Cade on the floor, we've talked about this a few times, when one of Cade or Ivey go to the bench, it's lights out. They don't have enough playmaking. Everything is on them, and the defense just keys on them. Without Ivey on the floor, they just double Cade on pick and rolls. He gets trapped, kicks it out, and they don't have enough players that can consistently make plays off the live dribble outside of Cade and Jaden Ivey, which is, I can pull the numbers up. We've said the numbers many times on the podcast, but you know what? Probably should have had these numbers up already. But I think you saw this actually really exhibited in the game against Memphis. Now, Jaden Ivey had that game winner, which was an absolute big deal. It was a great play from Jaden Ivey. Great shot from Jaden Ivey. We talked about on the podcast how well he played in that game against Toronto. But I mentioned after that as well on the podcast that the way the Pistons played in that game was not sustainable. Their offense struggled mightily. Their defense just was good enough, and the Raptors weren't that good offensively. The defense was good enough to keep it a one-possession game late and give Ivey a chance to win it on one possession. But that wasn't sustainable, and their offense did not look very good at all. And then in this game against the Grizzlies, you really saw how much not having enough ball handlers on the team really kill you. Ivey had 7 turnovers in this game in 17 minutes. He only played 17 minutes, had 7 turnovers and 1 assist. I think a lot of people understand that Jaden Ivey is not a pure point guard. So without Cade Cunningham, especially without Cade and not having another person to come in and play those point guard minutes, it puts a lot of stress on Jaden Ivey. And he looked fine doing it against Toronto, but that's not something he's going to consistently thrive in. That's not the type of player he is. So then you see in the game against Memphis, he's going to struggle. And even, like we mentioned, even with them both on the floor or with them both active, when one of them leaves, they're going to struggle, which is why the Pistons, I think at some point, maybe they don't address it this year. Maybe they just accept that that's something that they're going to struggle with. But that's something that's going to continue to be a problem for this team. They don't have a third point guard. They don't have someone that can consistently create for others off the bounce. And without Cade, it's incredibly highlighted. You got Malik Beasley, who is a great catch and shooter, quick trigger, but he's not really doing anything off the dribble. You don't really want him doing that. That's not his game. If you ask him to do that, you're asking him to do things he's not that great at. Same thing with THJ. You don't want THJ trying to create for people off the dribble. You want him to catch and shoot. Same thing with Simone Fontecchio. Same thing with Ron Holland. You don't even really want Marcus Sasser doing that. Marcus Sasser is a good scorer. He is a good shooter, but everyone understands he's not a point guard. He's a guy who can go out there and look for a shot, and he can shoot the ball really well. He has great shot creation, creates a lot of space with his dribble when looking for his own shot, but he's not a playmaker. So really the only guys they have on the team that have any of those, playmaking traits is Cade, Ivey. Duren has a little bit of it, but he's taken a step back in that department this year. He's turned the ball over a lot for the limited uses that he has. And the other hope is Ausar Thompson. But like I just mentioned, Ausar is so raw right now. He is so, if you've watched these games, you see he is getting gassed instantly. So I think that's the main thing that you're seeing. And we're going to talk about this in the second segment. They need their offense to improve if they want to not stall, if they don't want this season to stall out in December, which is about to be in a few days here. It's hard to do that. It's going to be hard when your only 2 capable ball handlers are Jaden Ivey and Cade, and when one of them gets in foul trouble, you're screwed. We've seen it already multiple times this year. Foul trouble, you're screwed. If Cade gets hurt, you see it. Their offense can't function. Their offense has not been good without Cade. And if Jaden Ivey goes down, it's probably going to be the same thing. Cade's better than Ivey, but you're going to have probably the similar result with that because it's going to be all Cade, the only ball handler, and it would have been nearly, maybe they win the same game. But it wouldn't be that, different if it was just Ivey you swap out with Cade. It's not so much, just specifically the differences as a player between Ivey and Cade. It's more so about the construction of the roster. They're the only guys that can create with the ball in their hands, and you need multiple ball handlers. You need multiple playmakers. You need multiple guys that can make reads off a live dribble and create for others off a live dribble, attack the paint, and once they get there, know what kind of decision to make. Beat a defender off the dribble at the point of attack. They don't have anyone else that can do that besides Ivey and Cade, and when one of them's off the floor, defense is keying on them, and you saw Ivey really struggle with this against Memphis. Memphis just put everybody on him, focused on him, played super aggressive, and they just weren't able to get their offense going throughout this game. So I think that's the main thing with Cade out. Again, my point of having this segment was not to do the whole, this team, told you Cade's, they're better with Cade. Almost everybody knows that. The point is that without Cade, you're seeing their weaknesses really get put on blast. And even defensively, Cade's size, they need his size. They need his activity on the boards. They need all of that. They've really struggled defensively even without Cade. Again, they dropped to 20th, 24th without Cade, I said earlier. Like, they need his size. They need his length. They need his activity on the boards and his ability to have some weak side rim protection as well. He's been good in that end. So you saw that without him, they really lack size. You got Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr. starting. You saw in this game against Memphis, Ausar Thompson started at the 4, but he's undersized the guard JJJ. Jaren Jackson Jr., a guy like that, was just shooting over him, bullying him. Not say bullying, but he's just bigger and stronger. Ausar is someone you want at the point of attack. He can switch 1 through 4, but his main assignment should not be the skilled power forward at 6'10", 6'11", with long arms that can put the ball in the deck and just shoot over him if he has to and put him in the post. Like, that's not where you want him at. You need that versatility, that size across the board, and obviously the capable ball handling on the offense as well. So that's where the Pistons are really struggling right now without Cade. And even when Cade comes back, when one of Cade or Ivey leave the floor, you're going to struggle with those departments as well. They need to find a solution. They're hoping it's going to be Ausar Thompson. But again, I'm just going to continue to push this out there. They should have went and got a third point guard or just another guard that is, a capable ball handler that creates for others. Because right now, that's going to be the big weakness of their offense for the rest of the year, I think, until they address it. But let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Ku Khahil. What do you guys think has been shown the most in Cade's absence from the team? Let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Ku Khahil. When we come back, has Detroit's season stalled? There are some things that they have to improve on, and there are some things I would say to be minorly concerned about with this team moving forward if they want to continue to make that push for the play-in and not fall too far behind. We'll break down what all that is when we come back. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place on live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review. Whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. If you want to become a Locked On Pistons insider, text the number 313-914-6528. You get a free 14-day subscription. You can find out during those 14 days, do you want to keep it or not moving forward. With that insider subscription, you can text with me one-on-one. I will text you all updates with the Detroit Pistons, injury reports, rumors, things I'm hearing, any content, anything, any rumors involving the Detroit Pistons. I'll be your personal, insider for you. And you, again, can text with me one-on-one. Check it out for 14 days. If you don't like it, you can move on. But you get a 14-day free trial. Check it out. And also head over to LockedOnDaily.com. Enter your email, and you'll get a Locked On Pistons daily newsletter with your daily podcast. The question that I see people asking, it's a fair question, is has the Detroit Pistons season stalled? And are they in danger of them falling behind? So right now, the Detroit Pistons are 11th in the Eastern Conference, and after having a chance to get back to 500, about a week and a half ago, they were 7-8 and had a chance to get back to 500, I believe, against the Chicago Bulls. They now find themselves 8-12 with this following schedule coming up over the next 5 games. You got the Indiana Pacers, the Sixers, the Milwaukee Bucks, the Boston Celtics, and the New York Knicks. That's just the next 5 games. The games after that, Utah, Phoenix, LA Lakers, the Kings, the Nuggets, the Magic, the Hornets. That's what their schedule's looking like over the next month. I think there are some concerns to be having over the Detroit Pistons season. I do want to say this, though. They still have started it better than I thought they would be. I did not think that this team, after 20 games, would be at 8-12. I thought they'd be worse. They have played better than I thought they would. So you still should be happy with how the season has gone to this point. You should be okay with how the season gone so far. You should be happy with the progress of certain players, and overall the season has went better than expected, I would say. However, there are some concerns. The first concern I have, remember at the beginning of November, I told you guys that this month had to be the month that the Pistons dominated. They absolutely had to dominate this month because they had a softer schedule during this month. And they did not play well enough during this month. They let games go by that they could have won and didn't take enough of an advantage of their soft part of their schedule. They lost, obviously, they got blown up by the Knicks. They lost one at the buzzer to the Charlotte Hornets. They lost another heartbreaker to the Houston Rockets by 2. They lost in overtime against Milwaukee after being up the entire game. They lost to the Bulls. They lost another close game to the Hornets. They lost by 11 to Orlando. And then they got blown out by a worse team in Memphis. Now, they were dealing with injuries, but heading into that game, I thought the Pistons had a good chance because Memphis was dealing with injuries too. They didn't have Gigi Jackson. They didn't have John Morant. They didn't have Zach Edey. They were missing quite a few guys too, and the Pistons just got blitzed. And that ended up, in that month of November, they lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games. They needed to be much better than that. They needed to be much better than that. They got their wins against Brooklyn, that's 1. Lakers, that's 2. They beat the Hawks, that's 3. Beat the Heat, that's 4. The Raptors, that's 5. The Wizards, that's 6. And then they beat the Raptors. So they went 7-8 so far this month. That wasn't good enough. They needed to go way over 500 during this month. This was the softer part of their schedule, and they needed to take advantage of it, and they didn't do that. Now, the last 3 games, they didn't have Cade, so that's somewhat of an excuse. But before then, they had multiple opportunities to win games, and they just blew it. And those games will catch up to you. If you keep blowing those type of games, it will catch up to you. That's one. The second concern that you have for this team is the offense has to eventually catch up with the defense. And the concern that I have is this, and I've said this on the podcast before. Like a week and a half ago, the Detroit Pistons defense was 6th in the NBA, all right? They were fantastic defensively. And I was coming on the podcast and I was telling you guys, I don't know how JB's doing it with this roster. I don't know how JB's making it work with these pieces. But not only is he making it work, he's making them play pretty damn well. Like, it's crazy how good he gets them playing. And at the same time, their offense had been struggling. And at this point, right now, as of this recording, the Pistons' offense is 24th in the NBA. The concern that I have, and the concern that I brought up to you guys, I believe 2 weeks ago, was this. The Detroit Pistons' defense was not going to remain that good. They do not have the defensive personnel for it to maintain that good. The fact that JB was getting that out of their defense to start the year in and of itself was a gift. It was a blessing. Somehow, I don't know how he did it, but it was not something you should be banking on long-term with this roster. The fact he was able to do it then was a miracle. That's the word I was looking for. It was a miracle. But now, about a week and a half later, now they're down to 13th in the NBA defensively. My concern is their defense is going to keep falling. That's the concern I have. This is not, I'll keep saying it, this is not a talented defensive roster. They're undersized at numerous positions. Ausar Thompson is back. That should help. But still, you got, until Ausar is fully ready to handle minutes and not be gassed, you have THJ and Malik Beasley guarding big wings. You've even seen Jaden Ivey having to guard big wings. You have massive concerns and struggles with Jalen Duren as a defensive five, especially against centers who can bring them out the paint and do things with the ball in their hands. We've already talked about this. And really, I mean, outside of Ausar Thompson, Isaiah Stewart, and I think we can say Cade, because Cade's been pretty good on that end this year. But he's not known as, Cade hasn't been like this great defensive player. He's been I'd say he's been good this year. So you give it to Cade, Ausar, and Stu, you just don't have defenders on this roster. So I do think that the defense is not going to, it's down to 13th. Do I think it's going to go back up towards 6th, or I think it's more likely for it to keep going down? I think it's likely for it to keep going down. They just don't have the right defensive personnel. That's the concern. And the other biggest concern for me is, while the defense is going down, the offense is not going up. The offense it's not like it's starting to meet, it's evening out here. It's not like, okay, the defense is starting to go back to its mean, and the offense with the offensive roster is going back to where you expected it, so they're kind of meeting it in the middle ground, and it's still good because, where they started, they're meeting each other in the middle. That's not what's happening. The defense is going down, and the offense is still either going down or remaining in the same place. Right now, they're 24th in the NBA in offense. This is supposed to be a way better offense. They put all their resources into the offensive end of the floor this offseason. They put money on Tobias Harris. They put money on Malik Beasley. They put money on Tim Hardaway Jr. They re-signed Simone Fontecchio. These are all offensive players. None of those players were brought in because they're good defensively. Not a single one. All of them were brought in to improve spacing, to improve shooting, and to give the Pistons a better offense. If this offense is not going to improve, if this offense is not going to start working its way up to middle of the league offensively, this is going to be, you're going to start seeing a disappointing season. Things will start going sideways. And that's going to be really disappointing because they started the season off in a much better spot. But the defense is trending in the wrong direction, and the offense isn't trending in the right direction to make up for it. At some point, they need to get this offense on track. This offense cannot continue to average 110 points per 100 possessions. They can't have 110.3 offensive rating. That can't be what they're doing. There's too much resources put into this offense for this to continue to happen. Again, like I said, it's not like they put a bunch of money into defense. I don't expect the defense to go back up to where it was. You were lucky for it to be where it was at the beginning of the year, the first 15-ish games. And they took advantage of it for what it's worth. They were hovering around 500. And they're 8-12 now. It's not like they're crazy away from 500, but they're falling farther behind as the defense gets worse. They need their offense to pick it up. They need Tobias Harris to play better. They need Simone Fontecchio to be better. They need Cade and Ivey to be more efficient in the paint around the rim. Both of them, I saw a stat the other day where both of them are towards the top in most field goal attempts in the paint. I believe Cade's top 5 in paint shot attempts. But at the rim, they're both towards the bottom 15 in percentage around the rim. They have to become more efficient in those shots. They have to draw more free throws. If the Pistons plan on holding off this wall that they may run into and end up stacking up losses and falling too far behind, I don't think it's going to come from their defense getting back up to 6th. It's going to come from their offense meeting where it's supposed to be. Not turning the ball over, becoming more efficient, and making more threes. They have to do that. They have to do it. Their offense can't be bottom 5, bottom 6 in the NBA. They're just not going to thrive that way. That's not what this roster was built to be. So, this team has been better than I thought it was. They have more talent than this offensively. Do they have the chance to turn it around? They do. They do have, or not even turn around. Do they have a chance to break through this wall? They do. They have the talent offensively to make it happen. Whether they do it or not, we'll have to see. But it has to happen fast. We're at 20 games. Remember, I like evaluating the season in quarters. We're at 20 games, and they're still bottom of the pack offensively. That's unacceptable with how much money you put into this offense and the talent on this roster. All of their players, besides Ausar, were drafted because of their offense. I guess not so much Ron Holland, but he's not a big rotation player. Like Cade, Ivey, Duran. Like these are offensive talented players. Tobias, Malik Beasley, THJ, Simone Fontecchio. These are offensive heavy players. There's no reason your offense is going to be bottom 6, and if it is, you're going to continue to fall farther and farther and farther behind in the standings. So their offense has to get better, man. They have to get better, or they're not going to break through this wall. So let me know in the comment section down below how you guys feel. Do you guys think the Pistons have ran into a wall, and how can they avoid falling far behind in the standings and getting through the next month of a decently tough schedule without, again, falling behind? Let me know. Comment section down below or over on Twitter at Ku Khahil. When we come back, I want to break down the future of the in-season tournament, where the Pistons stand as of right now, and what they need to do moving forward to get out of their group stage. We'll talk about that when we come back. Maybe gift giving isn't your love language. You overthink it and wind up with something disappointing or just nothing at all. Are you buying for someone who has everything or just seems, unpleasable? Are you tired of wasting money on useless clutter that no one really needs? Well, we've got the perfect gift for you. Skylight Frame is the touchscreen digital photo frame for your whole family to love. Upload thousands of photos with your phone and watch them appear in seconds. It's so easy to use, the setup takes less than 60 seconds. It has seamless sharing. Invite friends and family to easily share photos via the free Skylight mobile app or email. It only takes a tap on your phone to send new photos to a frame across the country. It's the fastest, easiest way to keep loved ones in the loop, and they'll feel so much more connected to you. We're confident that you'll love Skylight. We offer free 120-day returns, as well as also a top-rated brand, over 1 million happy customers, thousands of 5-star reviews, and available in over 30 countries. Recommended by Today Show, Forbes, New York Magazine, and more. And now, as a special limited time offer for our listeners, get $20 off your purchase of a Skylight Frame when you go to skylightframe.com/NBA. That's SKYLIGHTFRAME.com/NBA. Get $20 off your purchase now at skylightframe.com/NBA. Get $20 again off at skylightframe.com/NBA. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. That's another great way to support the podcast. All right, so the Pistons' next game against the Indiana Pacers is an in-season tournament game. The Pistons right now are second in their group. Their group consists of Milwaukee, the Pistons, obviously, Miami Heat, the Toronto Raptors, and the Indiana Pacers. Now, the Detroit Pistons, again, like I said, they're second right now. They're 2-0, actually, in the in-season tournament, which is actually pretty dope. And for all the talk that's been had about the Milwaukee Bucks season, obviously not going how maybe everyone expected it to go, they've slowly turned it around. They're 9-9 in the season. They're actually 3-0 in the in-season tourney. They've beaten Toronto, they've beaten Indiana, and they've beaten Miami. So that has them now, obviously, like I said, at the top of the group. In order for the Detroit Pistons to win their group and make it out, they have to win this game against Indiana, because Milwaukee's already played 3 games. Their next game is in Detroit. That's their 4th game. The Pistons' 4th game, obviously, is that game. And right now, they're 2-0. So if they go into that game, right now, they already are 25 points back, point differential. They need to win this game against Indiana and then give them a chance against Milwaukee. Right now, if you look at the standings for the in-season tourney, the top 4 seeds, you got the leaders and you got a wild card. You got Milwaukee at 3-0, Orlando at 2-0, Chicago at 2-1, and then the wild card is New York at 2-0. So the Pistons, if I believe I understand the rules correctly, they can win their division, their group, and get one of these top seeds. They'd have to win this game against Indiana on Friday and then beat Milwaukee in the 4th game. They'd be 4-0, and they'd be a top seed. Or they could be in order to be a wild card, they're going to have to finish better than the New York Knicks, Atlanta Hawks, and Boston Celtics. Boston Celtics are currently 2-1 with a plus 14-point differential. The New York Knicks are currently taking that 4th spot in the East. They're 2-0 with a plus 14 differential. So the Pistons are also 2-0, but they're 10 points behind in point differential. That's the tiebreaker right there. So the Pistons need to win in one of these games. there's two things they have to do. They have to, at least, I would say they probably need to sweep. That's when I'd say you'd feel the most confident about them making it to the next stage if they sweep Indiana and Milwaukee. I feel confident that they can beat Indiana, not so much Milwaukee. In Indiana, I'm really interested in how they do the rotation, because they are going again against a stretch big. So do we see more Isaiah Stewart? Do they change their defensive coverage with Jalen Duren? We'll see. But one, I think they probably need to sweep. If they don't sweep, they have to split both games. And if they split games, they have to win big in one and lose by a little in the other. They have to get a higher point differential here. If they sweep, they're good. They're just straight. That's the easiest way. The Pistons do control their own destiny because they finished off against Milwaukee. So if they beat Indiana, that final game would basically be like up for grabs. That would be like the championship the Pistons have been trying to get to since 2008, since the last time they were contenders. This is like the closest thing to a championship game the Pistons would have in 15 plus years against Milwaukee in Detroit. So they control their own destiny. They got to beat Indiana Friday night. They got to beat them. They have to. If they don't beat them, they have to hope, one, that New York doesn't sweep. I left that part out because the Knicks are 2-0. And they have Charlotte and Orlando coming up. So, to put it in the simplest terms, the Pistons control their own destiny. They went out, they're good. If they lose one, they're going to have to blow out one of these teams, Indiana, Milwaukee. They're going to have to win by a lot, increase their point differential. The other game that they lose can't be a blowout. And then they're going to need help from teams like Atlanta, New York, and Boston. So, I thought, I'm not going to lie to you, a few years ago, I thought the in-season tournament was dumb. The whole idea of having an in-season tournament. But for a team like the Pistons, who aren't contending for a championship yet, who are a young team trying to take these next steps, the in-season tournament could be a way for that. It gives you some heightened level competition, heightened level of importance to these games that maybe they won't get to experience unless they're in the playoffs. Maybe the Pistons do make the playoffs, who knows? But I don't think they're projected to make the playoffs. So this gives them that heightened level of competition that you'd get in the playoffs, gives them that experience. And if they can win these games and get themselves into the next part of the tournament, that makes them feel even good about themselves. And I'm sure that could be something that turns their season around or puts them in the right direction. So it sounds like Cade is probably going to be back against Indiana. That's the hope. You need to beat Indiana. You need to beat Milwaukee. You do that, you're good. You're straight up Gucci. You're straight. But the problem with the Pistons is that, yes, they've beaten Miami and Toronto. They've not done it by a lot. They only have a plus 4 point differential. So they got to start. Again, if they're going to lose one of these games, they better blow another team out. I don't know which game it is, but look, at the end of games, 10 seconds left, instead of dribbling out, go lay the ball up. Take a three. Take an open three. If whoever you're going against, Indiana, Milwaukee, wants to start trolling, just dribble the ball up and try to run timeout, go up and trap them. Get a steal. Go get a fast break layup. I don't care if you're up by 30. We're going full Detroit Lions here. We don't care how much we're up by. We're going to go out there and we're going to stun on you. That's what the Pistons' ideology has to be in these games. They have to add as much point differential as possible. So I think this is fun, though. The fact that the Pistons are 2-0 so far, and they're actually playing meaningful games already in November, I think is super dope for the players, the coaches, and for the fan base. Because if they would have been like 1-1 at this point, it basically would have been over with. Last year, they didn't even win an in-season tournament game. Obviously, they were on that losing streak. This year, they're 2-0, which is pretty cool. So, we'll see how they play against Indiana. Again, they need a sweep. They sweep, they're good. Moving on to the next part. It'd be super cool to see the Pistons in the next part of the tourney. But let me know in the comment section down below. What do you guys predict to happen in this in-season tourney? Do you think the Pistons will make it to the next round? Let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Ku Khahil. That's all I've got for you guys today. I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Leave us a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. Hit that subscribe button at the YouTube channel. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I hope you guys had a great one, enjoying it with family and friends. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe out there. And until next time, peace out.